We are Rogue Media Sports.
It is the Doomsday podcast, and the Cowboys have lost another home game. And
but only by 24 points this time.
Yeah, really, we're in this game.
Yeah.
34-10. That's about as close as it gets. And stayed in it for a while, and then it all came apart during two fumbles. There was some talk. There's some talk about, do you get two forced fumbles on the play? And I believe the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
And yes, you can see we're in our luxury suite. Thank you to the Nation family, Jim and Sally Nation, high above AT&T Stadium. And Ed, I think we're safe.
When you were saying things were coming apart, I thought you were going to segue into this.
Well, I was about to do a joke that yes, we are safe in this suite, and things as if things couldn't get worse for the Cowboys, a team that's been made fun of for Jerry's refusal to put up curtains for those afternoon games. And
what do you say? Maybe we should take the whole damn thing down?
Maybe just.
And I can imagine what he must be thinking after this.
Yes. And apparently we have just come from talking to Jerry, and Jerry blamed it on high winds in the area. Seemed to suggest
some metal panels.
Maybe all over North Texas this was happening. But yes, a piece of sheet metal is what it appeared to be. And I love that somebody got the actual footage of it. Of it floating.
Almost hit the ESPN set.
Yeah, it was what, 10 feet away? Or
yeah, so I was safe, obviously.
Ed could have been in trouble
years ago.
For many years.
Any of the previous 26 years I could have been in
jeopardy. It get close to the WFAA set? No, that was
we were at Texas Live.
You all were at Texas Live.
We knew better than to come in here.
You knew there could be wind issues. This apparently happened when the stadium, they were going to open the roof, and as they were doing so, this fell pretty close to people. That's why I and Ed, we were both with Jerry for a while after the game, but Jerry said something along the lines of like, there was no risk to anybody. And I kind of let it go for a little bit. And then I was like, would you say no risk? And he said, no, I didn't say anything about there was no risk. And I think what he was meaning is it was 3 or 4 hours. I think as long as it's 3 or 4 hours before the game, he's fine with stuff falling from the sky, right? But there were like people down there doing TV, and there were personnel and people milling around on the field.
There was another piece that was loose up there that they had to bring down or secure. And so for a while it was affecting the warm-ups. Players had to go to one side of the field, one half of the field. So
I think
it was a little bit of an inconvenience.
I think I saw Scott Van Pelt. He thought he was going to Lisa Salters for one of those, where everything's kind of set up and she's going to talk about whatever, and she goes, Scott, I'm not going to talk about that. We've had something fall from the ceiling. He's like, oh, okay, sorry.
We got a jumper.
we've got something happening. And anyway,
the sky is literally falling on the Cowboys.
It is falling. And fortunately, there weren't enough Cowboys fans here late in the game for anything to happen to them. They were very safe because they were on their way home. And
if they came at all.
If they were here, there were lots of empty seats. But the Texans showed up en masse, as they tend to do. They pretty much took the stadium over. And Ed, it made me think of the time Tony Romo went to the silent count at home. It was against the Texans when he did that. I don't know, 7-8 years ago. He had to go to a silent count.
Than that, I think.
Yeah.
Dak's in his 9th year as a starter, so.
Oh, my gosh.
A little longer
10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
But at least Dak didn't have to be a part of this thing. They safely, because he's had his surgery, so he was on some crutches, and they had him up in a suite or wherever he was.
He was helping the coaches.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a Microsoft Surface pad and headphones and was helping the coaches.
Good.
And some of the players, I know Tyler Smith afterward was lauding the fact that he was there and that it meant a lot to them to see him there and it inspired them. Otherwise, they would have been beat by way more than 24 points, I guess.
Okay. The inspiring presence of Dak Prescott. And Tyler was one of several Cowboys who did not finish the game.
Yep.
Tyler Smith, Guyton.
Zach Martin
was hurt. Zach Martin left the game.
Jake
so they lost
Ferguson.
3 linemen and a concussion to a tight end.
And they've got a short week before they go play at Washington and Dan Quinn. Their next 2 games are short week games.
Yeah.
So these players are all going to be in jeopardy, I think, of missing a game or two here, which will further weaken an already a roster that doesn't have enough talent to compete right now.
All right, we're going to talk about it, and also you can watch Ed just hours from now, 6:30 a.m. on WFAA, Channel 8, the ABC affiliate in Dallas-Fort Worth area, and y'all put on a fine show leading up to the game, Monday Night Football tonight, and there was a lot of, and I think by the way, it sounded like the Manning brothers were having fun at the Cowboys' expense.
With Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick, and they were laughing about some things. It is, what I'd like to say now, though, is Mike Hamilton, please play the music. And there it is. Thank you, Ronnie Foss. Thank you for our theme song. And Ed, let's lock in on this thing. Let
me start with this. Can I?
Sure.
Can I decide where we start?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, we'll just go off
The
script.
Cowboys are now 0-5 this year at AT&T Stadium. It's the first time they've started 0-5 at home since 1989, the infamous 1-in-15 year of first-year head coach Jimmy Johnson. Jerry's first year as the owner. So first time since then they've been 0-5 at home. That year they lost all their home games. Their only win was at Washington. And to put it in further perspective, they've been outscored by 118 points in these 5 games. That's the third largest margin in a team's first 5 home games of the season in the Super Bowl era. Only the 2013 Jaguars and the 1966 Falcons were worse than the Cowboys in their first 5 regular season home games. It's just amazing. And Mike McCarthy spoke to it this week and said it's the most remarkable thing he's ever seen in his 18 years as an NFL head coach and in the many years before that as an assistant, that a team that begins the season as the best home team in football over 2 years, it's won 16 straight regular season home games, entering the season, is now the most inept home team in football.
Yeah. And they're not great on the road.
And I haven't been so far.
No.
But they did have one on the road at least
True.
3 times. They beat Pittsburgh somehow. Pittsburgh's the only team with a winning record the Cowboys have beaten all year.
And watching what Pittsburgh did the other day against Baltimore, yeah, it's hard to believe. And that team's going in the right direction. It is odd, and we understand. Like, we're going to continue to do this and analyze these games, but everybody on the staff's getting fired. There is no turning this around. I mean,
well, in fact, it's to this point where the Cowboys have a home field disadvantage in a year where everything is the opposite. This is now a season of opposites for the Cowboys. Like, wins are losses and losses are wins, because it's now all about losing enough games to get a high draft pick. And right now, according to Tankathon, that's where we are. One of our resources in covering the Cowboys now is Tankathon. Mm-hmm. And according to them, the Cowboys right now have the 9th overall pick in the draft. Everybody in the league has at least 2 losses, and several other teams like the Cowboys have 3. So the Cowboys are right in the thick of it for the first overall pick.
I think they're uniquely prepared to lose a lot of games the rest of the way. And they're losing linemen, they're losing tight ends, and they got to go play a good Washington team. And then they got to face the Italian stallion, Tommy DeVito, who has been elevated to the starter for the New York Giants, who are also trying to tank. I mean, all these teams are going to try to out-tank each other. I mean, that would be horrible for the Cowboys to win at home on Thanksgiving.
Well, the great thing for the Cowboys is they didn't have to bench their starting quarterback, to start losing games. I mean, they were losing games with their starting quarterback.
It was a natural.
And now they've won no games with their backup quarterback, who had previously been 5-1 as a starting quarterback. Now he's 0-2. And tonight, the backup quarterback dropped back to pass 60 times.
Yeah.
Threw 55 passes. Got sacked 5 times.
That's what you want.
What kind of game plan is that? I guess when your alternative is to have Rico Dowdle run and he's averaging under 3 yards a carry, there are no good choices to be made. Although I still thought Mike McCarthy made some questionable choices in this game, starting with the fake punt at the end of the first possession. That's 2 fake punts in 3 weeks, which is Mike McCarthy telling the world, I cannot win this game straight up.
I got no shot.
Yeah.
They're already down 7-0. They quickly were down 14-0. And even though the Texans were going down there and didn't take the 3 points and went for it, and the Cowboys were able to hold them, I mean, the defense actually makes some plays
2 weeks
early
in a row.
in games.
2 weeks in a row.
And who got the interception for the Cowboys down there?
Oh, Malik Hooker.
Malik Hooker had to, makes the play, and they made some plays, and they were able to get after Stroud a little bit, but my gosh, he ends up with 257 yards. His completion percentage is great. He was like 25 for 35, 25 for 34, and he could run for anything he wanted. And we were talking about it right before we started the podcast, the Doomsday podcast. First play of the game, Nico Collins goes for a 77-yard touchdown.
For 5 weeks. His first game back in 5 weeks from Hampton.
And so Laramie Tunsil does what he usually does, and he gets called for holding. And then they still march it down there. Mixon runs it in from,
45 yards?
43 yards, yeah. I think. And so
untouched.
The Cowboys fall down 7-0 quickly. And then, the strange deal where you first of all, Aubrey, who never misses field goals, and I think it's the first one he's ever missed at AT&T Stadium.
Yeah.
So now he's 34 for 45. He misses a chip shot for him, 40 yards. He hits the right upright. Well, they let him kick from 64, and that would have
he makes it.
That would have made it 20-13. They're down 20-10.
One score game now.
Nails it, and you're like, okay. And they're kind of talking about things, but they called unsportsmanlike conduct, or we hadn't heard that call since
Deacon Jones
1960s. And Cowboys take the points off the board, which for years we've all grown up hearing, don't take points off the board.
Especially when you have an offense that doesn't score. Like they haven't scored a third quarter touchdown since week 1.
They had one, yes, you're right. And they'd had one touchdown in 3 games, the last 3 home games, I think it was, or maybe it's his last 3 games. They're so awful. I can just make up stats, and they're mostly right. But they take it off the board, and they go down there and go for it on 4th and 2 and don't get it. And on the 4th and 2 play, you're like, okay, well, will they come up here? Will it be like a toss? Could it be their favorite jet sweep play? Could it be something, a quick hitter, sprint out, right, immediate? No, he's like trying to roll out. He gets in trouble.
So he eliminates half the field.
No shot. He had no shot.
He has no athleticism. I mean, you run that play with Dak. You don't run that play with Cooper Rush.
I think he might have been trying to throw to Jonathan Mingo. He makes an appearance at some point in that game. Wasn't it Mingo, number 81?
Yeah.
I think he was trying to go to Mingo. And you could just tell.
Anyway, they failed to score. How many times in NFL history do you think that's happened? That somebody makes a 64-yard field goal, they take it off the board, and that team does not score points on that possession.
Yeah.
Probably almost never. So Jerry was asked after the game about these seeming strategic blunders, the 2 fake punts, that play. And he really didn't take any issue with it. He did say you're trying to create momentum, and when you take those risks and you don't create momentum for you create it for the opponent because they've stopped you in that situation.
Yeah.
And so, but it just goes to the whole desperate mentality that pervades this franchise right now.
Yeah, and the embarrassing nature of it led Jerry to basically talk about, like, hey, Jerry, I think you maybe ask him something about, have you seen any improvement? Is there anything that
these games all look the same to me?
Encourages you at all? I mean, Ed's asking it in a polite way, but Ed's basically saying, I didn't see anything. Did you, Jerry? And Jerry kind of meekly says, thought Rush played pretty well. Thought he did some good things. And the numbers, by the way, he threw 55 times or whatever. I mean, 32 for 55 or something like that. And he threw for 354 yards. I saw that number, and I'm like, wait, they had 10 points. How did this guy throw for 354? Well, they miss field goals. They take field goals off the board. Then they throw interceptions. I mean, it's bad.
His only touchdown pass was to Kevontae Turpin, which was their first since week 3 at home. And Kevontae Turpin also scored the touchdown in week 3. And Kevontae Turpin is primarily a returner. He's not primarily a wide receiver, but he on that touchdown, the longest touchdown of his career, and he hit a top speed that's the highest in the NFL this year, over 22 miles an hour, running that ball to the end zone. But I thought the play that epitomized the Cowboys now was Tyler Guyton getting beat for a blindside sack. And Cooper Rush loses control of the ball, and the defensive player is trying to get it. He's knocked it free. Guyton catches the ball in the air, tucks it, and tries to run, gets hit by Petrie, who knocks the ball loose from him, and the Texans wind up taking it in for a defensive touchdown, and that was pretty much the game. If the Cowboys were going to ever make a run, that was it. And it's the second time in 2 weeks that a Cowboys offensive lineman didn't just secure the ball. Terrence Steele did the same thing last week when Cooper Rush fumbled, tried to pick it up and run with it. The next day at the Star in his press conference, offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer is telling us they make sure that the offensive linemen know that big guys do not try to advance the ball. Just fall on the ball.
Yeah.
And so if he told us, I assume he tells them the same thing. And here we go, 2 weeks in a row, an offensive lineman thinks he's going to run it to the house.
It's just like, I think they love feeling athletic. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to try to make a play. He's got no shot. And
he gets hurt.
And Petrie kills him. Petrie's one of the more punishing hitters around. The former Baylor great, one of the most tremendous college players I've seen of the last 5 to 10 years. And he crushes him. And then Petrie gets called for unnecessary roughness on a play just because it looked like it had to be something, right? The officials were like, hard to hit a flag. That's too hard to hit. And he hit the guy in the shoulder. Who was that? Schoonmaker just got crushed. I mean,
there were some medicine balls being thrown out there.
It was a bad team. And I think Jerry knows. I mean, there's going to be a regime change. Unfortunately, there will be no change at the very top, obviously. And there'll be no change with like the way they draft or anybody. Nobody like that's getting fired.
Not unless Will McClay decides to leave.
Exactly. But the coaching staff is gone. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'll keep somebody. Maybe they'll keep the strength coach or something. I don't know. But they're all gone. I mean, we hate it for our old friend Zimmer because he just got back here. He's finally got Micah back the past 2 games. They actually do have a pass rush at times, but it's not enough to sustain anything. They give up huge plays on the back end.
And the offense never helps them out.
Well, no, like literally to even get through the game, they elevated some guy named Butler. What's his name? Darius Butler? No. Somebody Butler, 31. And he came off the practice squad. He starts the game, and what was kind of a surprise tonight, he actually did okay. Wanye Thomas made a play on the ball tonight at some point, but they all just none of them can cover. And it's a rough scene. And then
Josh Butler. And he started ahead of a high draft pick. Kalen Carson did not start the game. He started last week and got benched.
Yeah.
And tonight he endures the embarrassment of having a guy called up from the practice squad and Josh Butler start in his place.
And just to try to placate fans, Stephen and Jerry will spend this week talking about how Deron Bland might be able to play.
And Marshawn
Nealon. I have to think, wait, who's that? Oh yeah, he's a draft pick, second round draft pick. Yeah. It's kind of like, oh man, will that change
Help's
things?
Coming.
Probably not. I mean, Jerry, the most honest Jerry's been all season is when he made the statement, like when everybody's like, oh, how bad is this? How hard is it to function without Dak Prescott or something? And Jerry said, we weren't good with him.
Yep.
And that was his honest.
He said that.
Yeah, that was an honest assessment. And then the other honest
won
part,
3 ball games with that.
Yeah.
So he was basically saying McCarthy is not getting it out that, we lost Dak to an injury because we were 3-5 when Prescott got hurt. That's what he was saying.
Yeah. It's another game where, again, I think the bar's been lowered so much, especially at home, that we're sort of shocked when they even have, when they made it 2013, I'm up there in the press box oh my gosh, they're within a touchdown, and this game's only in the third quarter, and they got a shot here, and again, it just all vanished in a hurry because they do crazy things like have offensive linemen try to advance the ball, and they just get crushed. And Cooper Rush doesn't give. I mean, Jerry was asked about Trey Lance, and I got to think Jerry is probably ready to see something different. I mean, he may have thought Cooper Rush played okay, but Cooper Rush ended up putting up a lot of meaningless yards in this game because they never can score. The interception he threw, that was a bad one, was CD. You know, one of the things that bugs you about CD, he gets knocked off a route. When something like that happens to CD, like his first instinct seems to be to give up. Like there's never like, oh my gosh, I gotta like, you know. And again, maybe he couldn't have done anything on that case, but he got hit. I see Rush back there with his hands up. Maybe he was looking for a call. Maybe he was looking for like a holding or some kind of interference call. But his body language
was saying like how do you put me in that position?
Make me look like a.
So I would, you know, you mentioned Trey Lance, and I think the interesting thing about Trey Lance, since he didn't play at all in this game, is remember that Jerry made the Trey Lance trade by his own admission without consulting Mike McCarthy. And it's rare that he does that, but he admitted he did it in that case. And, you know, Jerry remains, I think, pretty adamant that he's not going to make a coaching change during the season. He again was asked about it, and he cited the same bad examples of, you know, I did it with Chan Gailey and I regretted it. I did it with Wade Phillips and I regret it. Or Chan Gailey wasn't fired during the season, but after just 2 seasons.
Yeah, and he went 9-7.
Right.
And Jerry
and so I thought there's 2 ways I could see Jerry making a coaching change during the season, and it would involve McCarthy refusing edicts from Jerry. One, if Jerry said, I want to see somebody else call the plays. Let's let Schottenheimer try and call the plays because this isn't working. Or 2, if he tried to say, it's time to play Trey Lance. I want Trey Lance to be the starting quarterback. And I don't know if Jerry would do that or not. And I don't know if McCarthy would resist if he did. But that kind of conflict, I think, would be necessary for there to be a coaching change during the season.
Yeah. And Jerry does not seem interested in making that change right now.
He's going to make McCarthy suffer through the whole thing.
Absolutely. And he's going to have to wear it, and he makes a great deal of money. And but they will be looking for a new coach. And as the season progresses, we'll look more and more. And every week, there's kind of a new direction or a new thought on that process. And of course, the report recently about Dion saying he would privately, you know, step in if he thought Travis Hunter or his son Shedeur Sanders was going to a bad situation, and would Dion be considered as a head coach? Would Bill Belichick, Ben Johnson of Detroit,
Jason
Witten? Oh, that was another thing that came up. Witten's down the road at Liberty Christian doing a great job, and I think both of us have tremendous respect for his football mind, his acumen, you know, everything, his work ethic,
yeah.
And that I think he could be a great coach. I mean, can you go put him straight in as a head coach for the Cowboys? It seems kind of far-fetched, but I think in Jerry's mind, and he compared him to Dan Campbell.
Although he couldn't come up with Dan Campbell's name, so my question is, should the man be leading a coaching search if he can't come up with the name of a guy who played tight end here under Bill Parcells and is the right now most successful coach in Lions history?
He said one of our tight ends up there in Detroit, so I'll give him that. He at least knew kind of where he coached.
The difference, of course, is Dan Campbell coached in the NFL for 11 seasons as an assistant.
Yeah. And Witten was on Monday Night Football and then has been coaching. And again, could be good and he could be ready to go. Ed is making a move to get a little water there. Ed, this would be a good time, by the way, to bring in and one of the harshest graders of them all. And lately, he's been reluctant to give out grades. He just feels like, man, they're just losing.
They're so far off the alphabet.
He doesn't even know where to go on the alphabet. And I do want to say before we bring him on, thank you, Marable Homes. Thank you for what you're doing. Photo shoot is set up. Can't wait to share it with you. And beautiful homes, Preston Hollow, Highland Park, Lake Highlands, gorgeous luxury homes. Marable Homes, MARABLE homes.com. Incredible family, talented kids, talented wife, great tennis family. Ed went to actually played tennis in college. And so we'll get him out there with Blake Marable at some point. I'd like to get Ed out there, but Ed would get very frustrated with me because all I do is drop, shot, and lob, and he hates both of those things. So anyway, MarableHomes.com, tremendous job, gorgeous homes, and we love working with him and love that he's part of the Doomsday podcast. Okay, without further ado, it is now time to talk to Glenn Stretch Smith, former Cowboys scout and coach. It is Stretch Plays. Glenn Stretch Smith, you see him. I got to see him earlier tonight in the press box on the scene, doing some work for WFAA tonight. And as he tends to do after these games, and tonight, even before the game. Stretch, for Stretch Plays, I mean, like, I wanted to start here. There was a point in this game where the Cowboys actually, like, were still in the game. They kicked that field goal 64 yards, and it's going to be 2013. Walk me through kind of where you were in that moment as a longtime coach. Did you understand taking the points off the board, or are you of the persuasion that, hey, that's not the thing you want to do in that situation? How did that hit you? Because that felt like the last chance the Cowboys had, because they went down there and obviously didn't get it on 4th and 2.
Yeah, I'm going to say this, that at that point in the football game, defensively, you were getting about as much as you could get out of some guys, Matt, that weren't even on the flip card. I mean, literally, when you looked at it, Josh Butler was not, he was only listed in the numerical flip card. And so when you're playing with Makuamu and Jonye Thomas and, again, Josh Butler, and they're playing about as good as they can play. I mean, they had made couple critical stops for you. They'd gotten the hooker, got the pick. I mean, they were doing some things that you say, if you look at it and you're realistic with how you grade it, I mean, the linebackers gave you a winning grade. Watkins, Odigizua gave you a winning effort. Josh Butler, Makuamu, Thomas, Diggs, they gave you a winning effort until that particular time in the football game. And so if you're realistic, I didn't have a problem with McCarthy taking the 64-yard field goal off the board. What I had a problem with was then going down and on 4th and 2 from, I think it was the 8, he calls a half roll, cuts off half of the field, and expects a backup quarterback to make a very tight window throw. When for the first 2.5 quarters of the football game, did he make some throws? Sure. He stuck it on Turpin for the slant, but he also missed some throws. And he missed some throws because, I mean, he just couldn't feel like he got his feet up under him. It was really something that I'm just thinking, okay, either he doesn't have confidence in his front, or he's just concerned about getting the football out, because something as simple as a 5-yard flat, I mean, he threw it behind CD one time. He threw it behind Dowdle one time. Those are throws that a pro quarterback has to make. And I don't care that he's the backup. Yes. Is it unfortunate? Sure it is. But so I'm giving you a long answer to a question that says, I got no problem with you taking a 64-yard field goal off the board, which, by the way, makes it a 7-point and 1-score game, which I didn't think you thought. It felt like McCarthy didn't even have the confidence in his own football team to be in that position. And what I felt like is you combine that with the play call on 4th down, and it's almost like I got the feeling he was gambling with somebody else's credit card. That's how I got, that's the feeling I got. Like, well, to hell with it. We'll try to get back in this. football game right here with a field goal, when in fact he could have kicked that ball on fourth down right there. You convert it to a one-score game. Instead, you put your defense back on the field with a really bad fourth down call, and it reeks and feels of just, I don't know how to say it other than a reckless call. And so as I look at this and I'm thinking, man, I did a great job of hitting Turpin on the slant. I don't know if you saw the stat. I mean, he set the record at 22 and a half miles an hour net gen or next gen, whatever it is, stats. So it was the fastest anybody's run all year. And so you've got an opportunity to either run motion or come back to that or flip the formation. And he never came back to those kind of things. And I think that's, to me, that's the most frustrating thing is your defense played well enough to keep you in the football game for more than a half. That's the second straight time they've done that because they kept you in a football game the first half against Philadelphia getting five sacks. And they do it all without Micah Parsons really doing anything. He didn't hit a lick of the snake tonight. And so if you're realistic when you go back and look at this film and you think, well, we got really good effort out of certain guys that I don't think you thought were going to contribute this year, and you didn't give yourself at least a chance to cut it to a one-score game, Matt, that's on you. I mean, that really is something that the head coach, play caller, all of those things, he's going to have to take a look at. And, I mean, very seldom do I get on here and second guess a play call because I think it's easy to do. But in that particular situation, I thought the game changed right after that because, that's when you saw situation where Guyton gets whipped off the edge, fumbles, the ball fumbles. He thinks he's going to pick it up and look like Walter Payton with the damn thing. Instead of just getting on the ball and getting on the ground, he goes and tries to run with it, gets the ball stripped out, and it's returned for a touchdown. And the football game is over. Yeah. And I think that's the frustrating thing. And I can guarantee you, defensively, I mean, they're frustrated because I don't know that they could have played much better with the cast of characters that they had.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's good points on how they played, especially on the back end, what you said about that, and even some of what they did up front. Late, some of the old stuff happened, 12 men on the field and stuff like that, but that's been happening throughout the season. I'm trying to think of a couple of moments. You're always someone, we've been tough on Bones. We've praised some of Bones Fossil's work. I don't know if that was his call, Mike's call. I don't know if Mike signed off on it, but man, they've had two really kind of janky looking, I guess at least this one, Anger completed the pass. They get stopped, 5 yards short of the, it didn't really get that close to getting the first down. Stretch, do you just see that as just desperation? I mean, they're only down 7-0. They're going for it in their own territory from their own, 35 or 40 yard line. It's 4th and 9, and they got Anger trying to, throw a pass up the field. Is that just a sign of desperation? Like, what are we seeing there?
Yeah, I do think that's what that is. I said it in a little different way than you did. It feels like he's gambling with somebody else's money. Like that's not your own money to design a back shoulder throw a week ago or to design somewhat of a deep cross and you complete it and it's not enough for the first down. So to me, are we talking about execution? Are we talking about poor design? Are we talking about when we do it or what point we do it in the football game? Because, does that not send a message to your team when you throw a ball like that, I mean, you got to be standing on the sidelines thinking, what are we doing here? I mean, why at this point in the football game? And then if you're going to take that chance, give me something that maybe has a chance to turn into a home run. And neither one of those has done that. So I think it is a reckless. I don't know how to say it any different than it. It feels reckless at the time of the game that it was called, and it feels reckless and designed by the play call. You know, we as I'm standing and I'm sitting there tonight, and I'm looking at that game, and I'm thinking, man, I did not anticipate this team to be in this position this late in the football game. And it's not like, I mean, hey, Houston's a good football team, but Dallas is right there with them with a bunch of guys that nobody even knows who they are. And I think that's got to be the frustrating thing for Mike Zimmer and what's going on defensively. And then, you McCarthy comes out and announces Dowdle is okay. We're gonna make him the horse here, and we're gonna feed the football to him. He gets 10 carries, and Cooper Rush throws the ball 55 times. I mean, you don't even have to watch the game. You can look at the stat line and think it's not a good what I would consider recipe for winning a football game.
Did Ferguson gets hurt in this game? You're really good because you were a college tight ends coach, and you also coached in the USFL tight ends. Schoonmaker, 89 at Spain, whatever his name is, Ford or whatever.
Yeah.
Did you see some things at the tight ends? I mean, either the O-line or the tight ends. What did you see from that group?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the tight ends did a good job. They were max protecting some. Now, Schoonmaker got called for holding on the fourth down that they didn't get anyway. But I thought you saw the athleticism of Spanford. You saw him get down the field. I'm glad they're playing him. I'm glad he's, kind of getting some what I would consider to be seat time. He's out there getting that. I thought Schoonmaker ran a couple of really good routes. And so, I see good in the tight end position. I'm concerned with Terrence Steele. It feels like he has regressed. I don't know if it still has to do maybe with his injury, but I mean, there were a couple of times where Daniil Hunter, I'm talking about just ran right by him. And so, he gets a little top heavy at times. And I didn't see that in the first year when they just, they threw him to the wolves out there and he kind of made a name for himself. So I think guys are lacking confidence in the offensive line. And they listen to things too. And when you can't run the football, it falls directly on the fact that, you're not getting it done up front. And so I thought the offensive line just gave you somewhat of an okay effort, except in critical times, you can't just get beat and flat out whiff like Steele did, like Guyton did. You have to eliminate those types of things. I think Cooper Beebe did fine. I think Smith did fine. I see an offensive line that, in my mind, continues to make, albeit baby strides. They make some strides and show you at times from a protection standpoint. I thought there were a couple of times they did a great job sifting the protection, letting the deep guy come. The back picked up the deep guy, so they were a hat on a hat with the right guy, even though they brought 4 strong one time. You see things, and I'm looking at my notes, and you're like, yeah, I like what I saw there. I like that they left Dowdle to pick up the safety. They didn't put him on the defensive end and turn the protection all the way back. They sifted it the correct way, and so that tells me guys are thinking. That tells me guys are seeing what's going on, and so you have to give them some credit for that. at the same time, you can't whiff and you can't, throw no hitters at critical times in the football game. And it's hard, again, when you're throwing the ball 55 times a game. I'm telling you, it's hard as crap on your offensive line.
If you had your druthers, would you, and knowing this is a lost season at this point, that they're really not going anywhere, would you like to see Trey Lance get some opportunity, or is that not appealing to you at all?
No, I thought maybe they might have, I thought they might have a package for him. I thought down there, I really thought down there in a couple of times down there in the red zone, especially in that 4th and 2 scenario, I'm like, hey, let's run zone read here, 3rd and 4th down, and see if we can cause Houston some problems. Houston was either playing too deep, or they were dropping the Baylor Petrie down in the box, and he's a damn good tackler and a physical player. But I mean, you could have toyed with that a little bit, and they didn't do it. So yeah, I want to see a package where they're able to use him some. I want to see more of Deuce Vaughn. I want to see Deuce Vaughn get out on air and run some draw plays and be able to do some things. They gave the ball one time, or checked the ball down one time to Zeke. I've seen enough of Zeke. It doesn't mean I don't like him. I've seen enough of him. So I need to know moving forward, what is it that we got? And because of injuries, they're forced to play these guys with Bland being out and with Jordan Lewis being out, and you're getting a look at some guys. Let's do the same thing offensively, because right now I know what I have in Zeke and Dalvin Cook. I know what I have in those guys. I feel the same way. I want to see more of Flournoy. I want to see more of Span Ford. I want to continue to see Sumaker. Do I want Ferguson to be out with a concussion? Absolutely not. But I like seeing some of these young guys to know what you can stack up and how you're going to move, especially when you get in the draft. Because right now, looks like this team could have a top 3 or 4 pick in the draft.
All right. Right now, I think if they pick, they'd be 9th, but they may be able to move up because they're right now seem pretty prepared to lose some football games. Stretch, you and I have a road trip tomorrow that we've got to prepare for. We got to head south, and I appreciate you tonight. Good to see you in the press box. Tried to get you to have a halftime snack with me, but I guess you had to get back to it. You seem very focused, but good to be with you, and I'm glad we survived. The roof was caving in out here, and I'm glad y'all are over at Texas Live and not out here on that surface, because they got sheet metal falling, and hopefully we'll get out there, and there's some caulking and things I think we could do to bolt some of that stuff up there, but never good when that stuff starts falling. So glad we're all safe, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you. And you look like a guy that could get it done over there at Harbor Freight and maybe get some of those things tacked up in that ceiling, Mosley. So I think you ought to get your little jumpsuit on and get up there and get it. See if you can get it bolted in for them.
You got to get some epoxy, and you got to rub it in there, and you got to stick some of that stuff back together. So I can help Jerry on that front. Stretch, thank you very much.
Mosley, thank you. And tell Mike, sorry to bother you.
And there he was.
I saw him.
A man, you saw him earlier tonight,
I did see him
WFAA,
earlier,
and y'all shared some food there. I don't know if halftime or
we were on the
before
same
the
show.
game.
He was sitting right next to me.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
Yeah.
You guys,
picked the better of the 2 seats.
You guys work together in so many ways now with the Doomsday and Channel. I don't think you meant for that to happen.
Certainly
but
not.
It's somehow happened. You and Stretch together again. Always good to have him on. Okay, Ed, let's work through. You're good at kind of these schedules, because it's a short week. You brought it up. You go to Commander's Land. You go to where are they? Landover. You head that direction.
Well, and they haven't played since last Thursday, so they've had a mini bye.
So
they played the Eagles last Thursday.
Yeah.
So they've got
Yeah.
like a 5-day advantage on the Cowboys. Plus they play at home.
Yeah.
And then the Cowboys play there against Dan Quinn, their former defensive coordinator, a man who kind of rebuilt his career as a potential head coach in 3 seasons with Dallas, created one of the great takeaway defenses in the NFL
Yeah.
in that period of time, something the Cowboys desperately miss now. Although I don't think Dan Quinn would have had any kind of success, comparable success with the talent that is here now that Mike Zimmer's coaching, had he come back for a 4th season. But anyway, in his first season with Washington, second to the Eagles in the division, good chance to make the playoffs in his first year as a head coach in Washington with the number 2 quarterback pick and Jaden Daniels,
Yeah.
who is capable of running but hasn't done that much since he suffered a rib injury. I know Quinn said today that the quarterback's completely healthy. They haven't played as well on offense in his mind because he missed so much practice time with the injury, but he's healthy, and it'll be interesting to see how the Cowboys defense can handle a dual threat quarterback again. We saw how poorly they did it with Jalen Hurts just 2 weeks ago.
Again, they need to lose games and get that better draft order. And so they've gone from this kind of talking about, oh my gosh, we could make something amazing happen if we get this thing going, and what a story
Valley
it
of
would be
adversity.
if we rallied, and Mike McCarthy is built for this. Even Aaron Rodgers came to his aid, a man who's really not getting it done on in the Jets. And even though they seem to have a falling out, they now seem to have patched things up there. And who knows, maybe they'll get to work together down the road.
Both having miserable seasons.
Both having awful seasons. And it's just help is not on the way. We wondered if anything would happen at the trade deadline. It did. It came in the form of Jonathan Mingo. He had really no impact on this game. I saw him out there a couple of times. I kind of like the Flournoy kid. He seemed like he was at least kind of active.
Got his attention, maybe.
Kind of moving around a little bit.
Had a couple catches.
Yeah, I thought he did okay. And then CD actually had a pretty decent game. I mean, his body language just always, he really seems like one of the more miserable players in every game right now. And even when he had Dak, I mean, he was frustrated with Dak. And so these are some of the wealthiest and most miserable people I've ever covered.
Fair point. I'm not going to dispute that.
Okay, that is the Doomsday Podcast. Watch Ed on WFAA. You'll wake up with him 6:30 a.m. and does a great job on that show. And Ed, I appreciate it. We'll do it again next week.
Early game, early kick, noon kick.
That's what the Cowboys deserve.
Yep.
And apparently there is news that they wanted to flex them out of a game with the Bengals later this season, a Monday night game, and they could have done it, but apparently I thought this was a joke.
The Simpsons thing?
Yeah, but apparently they've done all this work to have an alternate broadcast that involves the Simpsons doing something. I can't
recreate the characters if they put 2 new teams in that time.
They already have prepared for these teams, and I mean, it really is how the NFL should run things. Is just let an alternate Simpsons broadcast sort of dictate who they put on television.
But they do have a Sunday night game, I think, on the 22nd of December against the Bucks, who are 4-6. That game could get flexed because there are some other good games.
We can only hope it will.
I know. I don't want to do this too many times.
No. I mean, you love doing this.
I just mean the quick turnaround.
The late night.
Get home at 2 a.m, get up at 5, and go to the studio. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Ed's held up extremely well today, even having to do a lot of broadcasting and a lot of hits before the game and now after the game. It is the Doomsday Podcast, and thank you to the Marable family, and thank you to Ed, Mike Hamilton at Rogue Media Network, Glenn Stretch Smith. I am Matt Mosley. Good night from AT&T Stadium in Arlington.
We are Rogue Media Sports. Are you a podcaster? Let's talk podcast hosting. Are you tired of your current podcast host? Need real support in a community that gets it? At Rogue Media Network, we offer top-tier podcast hosting services to help you thrive. From hosting and distribution to dedicated support, we've got you covered. Starting as low as $25 a month. Join our community of passionate podcasters today. Contact us at hello@roguemedianetwork.com.